Gainers, I'm Ralphie and welcome to my channel called Foot of Philosophy, in which I discuss all things practical, stoic and involving the imagination. And one of the most useful ways to use our imagination is in the exploration of time, the presence of time, the consequences of time, the issues with time, the actual nature of time. And when I was a kid, I used to watch a programme called Doctor Who, and in Doctor Who was a TARDIS. A TARDIS is a time and relative dimension and space machine, and basically it's a transporter. It was used by a character called the Doctor. The Doctor was a Time Lord. The Time Lords were a fairly uneventful species, but just happened to have a real knack for understanding time in considerable depth and had the ability to manipulate it. This gave them a huge amount of power. Now let's put this into perspective. The idea of a time machine, and at the moment you'll recognise it in the Doctor Who series as a Victorian or late Victorian Edwardian police telephone box, but it can take any form, any shape, and in fact any dimension, because time has a lot of control over dimensions. It's very dimension fluid, and oh, there it's going. It's about to head off, I think. See the blue light flashing? Oh. Don't know if you can hear it. Right, okay. Fortunately not too much happened there. That's just as well, or I would have suddenly disappeared. Inside or outside a TARDIS, it doesn't matter. The thing is that to a very ordinary being, whether you're human or not, can you imagine the power that it gives you to move through time? Basically you can become ageless. You can acquire considerable knowledge. You can cross time and space in a fraction of time. You can jump dimensions. You can acquire considerable wealth, considerable knowledge, considerable access to many powerful and well-placed people of all species across multiverses. Now that, quite simply, is extraordinary. It's just warming up. It kind of wobbles a bit when it's moving. And nobody's quite sure why it does that. I think it's to look good for the cameras. Because, in fact, when a time machine is in motion, it's not so much the time machine itself, it's reality around it, and in fact it stays static, which is hard to conceive, but when you have imagination you start to understand the practicality of it. And time machines are certainly highly researched mechanisms for the humanoid collective. Behind the scenes, behind closed doors, behind barbed wire, a huge amount of research goes on. Some with technology that scientists understand, and sometimes with technology scientists do not understand but are trying to back engineer. Easier said than done, particularly when your imagination is limited, and humans' imagination is very limited. It was Albert Einstein said that one of the most powerful things that humans have is imagination, and you see this in the power of writers, where one writer can literally transform the thought process of a global population. Obviously, example of that is George Orwell, who was a relatively boring man, to be honest, but he was sincere and he was decent, and he wrote a series of depressing books until he wrote two books. Two books is all he needed to write, and it changed the world. In fact, when you have a word named after you, that is a very powerful indicator of the legacy you've left through the power of words which take time to write, and the power of the imagination transposed into words over time. Imagination is something which is not encouraged. In children it's natural, it's spontaneous, but then it's censored through art, for example. It's censored through conventional thought, and it's then censored through society's demands. And many children who are super imaginative and enormously talented for it, as a result of it, are basically suppressed and even medicated to dumb them down, to make them fit in and conform. So have a good think about time yourself. This is really the concluding episode on a series I've been doing on the subject of time. There's more to discuss, but that discussion, gainers, is for another day. In the meantime, I'll leave you with a view. Bye bye.